Hello and good morning, very warm welcome to some of you, good evening to others, depending in which time zone you're in. I'm very happy to see you all, although it's not a face-to-face meeting, it's still a virtual meeting. It's the third time in a row that we have a virtual meeting, and we are all hoping to see each other face-to-face, hopefully next year. We decided this year not to make it a face-to-face meeting because the situation is still too uncertain that we can have these obligations to have a face-to-face meeting. A warm welcome from Vienna. We are sitting in a room which is geographically located in Vienna, but political, it's nowhere land, or it's United Nations land. We are sitting in the office of the United Nations in Vienna. United Nations, they have 3 offices. One is in New York, one is in Geneva. Surprisingly, Switzerland is not even a member of the United Nations, but they have
Slight correction. We are a member of the United Nations. We have been since 2002 or 2003.
Ah, okay.
Now even member of the Security Council for this period.
Sure, but at the time when the office was opened, you haven't been a member.
No, absolutely. For a long time, Switzerland refused to be a member. It was the last time in the 80s, but it changed at the beginning of the new millennium.
Well, anyway, UNIDA is inviting us for this meeting, and we will tell a little bit about the background in the meeting a little bit later. But for this meeting, I just want to set the frame. The last meetings, we tried to avoid substantial discussions about bylaws and strategic decisions. But after 3 years, I think we need to do these discussions. But it's not easy to have a transparent discussion process and decision-making process if you have 2 separate meetings. We have limited time slots. We don't sit together in the same room. We want to have as much transparent discussions as possible and agree on what we want to agree. So I ask you if you have any questions in understanding, or if you have any comments, please post them very directly in the chat room, and just say I have a comment. You don't have to post a full comment. But that's the best way for us to understand how to interact with you individually in this situation. So this meeting has more or less 2 parts. The first part of this annual meeting is what we would call the formalities, the resolutions about the budget and the reports. And the second part is about the strategic discussion we had in the last couple of months and the outcome of the strategic discussions. And this is what I would like to go into a little bit deeper discussion with you. Of course, also about the formalities. So if you have any questions to things like budget or what the reports, please don't hesitate to ask and to discuss with us. So that's it. From my side, we have limited time slots. The next the next point on the agenda is the Q&A to the reports, and I would like to start with my introduction to the reports and some highlights I would like to add, as maybe it has been between the setting up of the reports and today, or some comments from my side. First of all, we are celebrating a birthday. I don't know how many of you know. It's the 35th birthday of ICMCI. It is, as I mentioned already, a very challenging time. So let us focus on the chances and the opportunities. The threats are coming anyway, so for this meeting, it's better to focus on the challenges. We do have the megatrend in consulting. One is digitalization, the other one is sustainability. When you enter this building, in the welcome, not in the welcome, it's before, when you enter, it's in the security check. They have big displays about the SDGs, and this is what not only some people, it's the world who is discussing SDGs. And of course, that is a big trend in management consulting. We need to take care of. It's something where we need to provide knowledge and build knowledge around this topic. I want to add, with regards to the ISO standard, we had the systematic review process, and some of you might get the message from your national standardization body that this review process is closed, and there is a decision made that there will no further action being taken by ISO. That was our proposal. We discussed that in a very good and in a very efficient meeting with the ISO trainers. And the outcome of this meeting with the ISO trainers was very clear. Leave the standard as it is, but please do some adaptations for the checklist. And these adaptations should go in sustainability and digitalization, which is very good for us because the checklist is ours. We can do changes, whatever we want. It's property of ICMCI. We are very flexible. And to develop the checklist that's our task. It's ICMCI task to do so. We don't need ISO for that. And in the standard, there is enough room for sustainability and digitalization. Not directly as an outcome of this systematic review process, but maybe it was triggered by this process. China has initiated another process in ISO. And this process is to set up a new committee, or maybe it's the old committee, which is not existing anymore because the standard is closed, but they want to reactivate the old or the initial committee to discuss further standardization with regards to management consulting industry. They have been in touch with me and ICMCI. I had a talk with Jack Yao, that's the name of the person in the National Standardization Body of China. It's not an initiative of IMC China, it's an initiative of the standardization body in China. And the feedback we gave them is, yes, we generally support this initiative. We do support to discuss most of the issues, all of the issues you raised in this initiative, but I said very clear, some of these issues will be very hard to get an agreement from ICMCI side. That is about, they're thinking about to set up different standards for different areas of management consulting. That would mean that we divide the consulting industry and consultants for marketing and controlling and logistics. And in my understanding, that's simply not possible. There's one management consulting industry, and this management consulting industry is one entity. It's hard to set up different bodies within the entity of management consulting, but it's worth to discuss, and I think we should be open for any discussion. Maybe your standardization body approached you already, if you and how you could support that. The process is that they need 6 countries to support, so they will achieve the 6 countries regardless if we support or if we do not support. But I think as a global organization for the management consulting industry, it would be very hard to argue that we refuse to discuss on the global level the consulting industry. I already mentioned that we are sitting here in the UNIDO office. The fact that we meet here in the UNIDO office is the outcome of the last International Consultancy Day in June. We invited UNIDO to present their view on the industry, and out of this presentation and out of this contact, we started to discuss about a partnership that goes far beyond just simply presenting to each other what we do. And it is intended to go in the direction like we have a partnership with EBRD. And based on the outcome also of our strategic process, it is, I think it's very important for us that we are open for more stakeholder engagement from for the industry outside of ICMCI. And that is one step, and hopefully we will find additional partners. We will do it step by step. And there are many other global partners that we should start to affiliate in any direction. This here is, we have a meeting tomorrow with UNIDO, and we hope we will achieve tomorrow a common understanding what would be the next steps. And it sounds very, very good for us, and we will keep you updated as soon as we have a concrete outcome of the meetings. Okay, that's what I wanted to start my introduction to the reports. Any further question from your side? Is there anything that you want to add? Did I forget something important, or is there anything from your side? Oh, and I don't see anything in the chat box, which is not at this point. Okay, thank you. Thank you all. So I would like to hand over to the discussion is structured around the reports, or a group of reports. We don't want to read the full report, and we don't want to go because we sent it out. We had a video statement for every report. So let's keep it as short as possible. Now, if there is anything for the treasurer, Tamara, with regards to her report and the auditor's report and the proposed budget, please.
I'm happy to answer any questions that the colleagues may have.
Lydia here. I have just one small question. I'm just curious about the 16,711 euros bad debt. It's quite common for organizations to have bad debt, but I'm just curious, that is my only question.
Thank you, Lydia. I have to admit, and I explained that briefly in my report, that this year we had a few honest conversations with some of our members that have been going through difficult and challenging times. We did our best to help them reschedule their payments, supported some of them so that we made it easier for them to pay. But there are unfortunately some that had situations that could not be resolved, and those resulted in bad debts. This is very common. This is less than the standard or the norm for a bad debt percentage. But yeah, I think we had to take some decisions and write up those according to international accounting standards.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. I was just curious. Yeah, thank you. No more questions from me.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you, Lydia. Yeah, of course, that is a situation we all would like to avoid, but as Tamara said, things are in progress.
Exactly. We try and do
most of them in the direction we want to have them, not all of them.
Absolutely.
So I don't see any further questions to Tamara.
Just one question more, Rob. To the part of China of the standard.
Yes.
I don't know if we discuss it later on. Otherwise, I would just say my opinion to this point. We're the global voice of management consulting, so therefore we must give our opinion on the possible standard or on the working group China has started. So it's just my opinion to this point.
Yes, if I understand you, to support the initiative.
Right.
Yes, there are many technical questions around that, but in general, I think we support, and then we need to discuss how to set up the committee and the progress and so on and so forth. That's the next level, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Good for the feedback. It directly brings us to the next committee report, which is the PSC, Professional Standards report. And Celal is not here, but I'm sure we can answer the questions because many of us are involved in this committee. The PSC, of course, is one of the committees that have a huge. All the committees have a huge workload, but PSC has a huge workload, and they need because that's our core. They are dealing with everything that is knowledge and background to our industry. And that is what Celal report about their activities. Any questions from your side? Any comments? Anything that should be added?
Just to say a few words. I think Celal and all the other committees are all doing an excellent job in their different domain. Sometimes it's not easy, you know, at the committee level to have the buy-in of all the institutes, you know, but they are doing an excellent job, and thanks to them, and thanks to your leadership and the board members too.
Thank you, Lilia. We will forward it to the committees. We cannot say it often enough. You're absolutely, because we take it because it's here. Nobody thinks about how much work is to invest, and we cannot say it often enough. You're absolutely right. Okay, then another person is with us. He is in charge of QSC, which is another core committee. Miss Nick, any questions to Nick? Or do you want to add something? Did I forget something?
No, I only have one question. Why have I been landed with this?
You're an expert.
It is it's a very interesting task, and I really want to give some thanks to all the assessors, the QAC assessors, because they're having a really tough time and have done it during the COVID pandemic in trying to conduct assessments virtually, which is not easy, but super job. And they still are doing a super job, and we are almost caught up with all the delays in our assessments. Hopefully by the end of this year, we're going to have everything sorted, ready to start afresh next year. So, and also thanks all those institutes that have been assessed over the past year, because the cooperation from institutes has been super, and it has enabled us to get through the process very efficiently.
Yeah. Talking about the process very efficiently, that brings me to another point, which is not ready yet, but one action done by Kusama and Rima is to set up SOHO, and one issue is to make the assessment process as digital as possible. And it's a big project, and everybody needs to learn a little bit before that, but I hope to do that as soon as possible, because it's really such a big workload, and if we can do that supported by IT and digital tools, it would help all of us.
Well, like I told everyone in my report, we're at the stage where the communication part and the CRM part has been dealt with, and now We know that they is the capable person of handling that. However, the development part is yet to start, and that's where we would need to get developers in order to support us in properly implementing the processes digitally. So we will keep you updated all through.
I think a digital tool is good, but sometimes we cannot do away with the personal interaction, you know, especially in the audit. I'm sure everyone will appreciate that. When it's interactive, it is clearer, then put it in writing, and it could be a ding-dong process, you know, but whereas if it's personally in person, it can be explained on the spot. So I still believe that we cannot erase totally the element of that personal touch. That's all I have to say. And thank you. Yeah.
That's correct. The assessments themselves will continue to either be virtual or in person, but the process is what we're going to automate somehow.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Maria.
Upload the documents and so on. And
Right. Yeah.
okay, I see Sela is joining us now. Sela, welcome. We just had a discussion about PSC report. Everybody agrees, and there was only one comment from Lydia thanking you for your work.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you. If there's any further questions, I'm here.
Yeah. Now we move over to Gergana. She is in charge of the future of management, of consulting, and the membership committee. Gergana, do you want to add something? Or is anybody of you having a question or comments to Gergana?
It has been a great pleasure to drive the initiative. If I start with the future management consultancy, I think it's somehow now that we are almost at the end of it, what we try to do is get everything into one ebook, but bear with me, it will take maybe another month. So every all assets which we have created will be put in one place and will be easier to refer to and look at them in the future. I think, I hope the initiative has demonstrated how we could work together. I mean, the ICMCI, the institutes and individual consultants. So it was a bit of a, maybe even cultural change of ICMCI. Maybe I could announce we have the big closing event, which will be inviting some 20 young consultants at the end of the month who would share their views about the future. So it's not over yet, but as planned, it will be close towards the end of the year. If I have to comment on the other task which I was responsible for, the membership committee, it has been a great experience to work with so many dedicated people around membership. I hope the committee will have a much bigger and more strategic role in the future, because until now things were more related to compliance, but the potential for growth is there. And I hope the committee will be doing with much great impact going forward. I want to thank the committee members for the work which we have been doing.
Thank you, Gergana, for excellent work to keep us learning. We all need to be lifelong learners. So we need to learn, relearn, and unlearn, and be in touch with the latest trend. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia.
Just wanted to add and congratulate Gergana for that initiative, for managing that initiative. Perhaps the only comment that I would have is that it would be good if after the initiative is closed, like an info pack is prepared so that the IMCs can bring it down to their respective areas in a sort of conclusions or going forward document that provides some context to the next activities that each IMC might undertake.
Thank you, Otto, very much for this comment. Maybe two thoughts from my side. One is that the ambition is to create an e-book which will combine all the thought leadership which we have created, all the conclusions in one place. And this could be used by consultants going forward, because to be honest, I often go back and I learn more and more, as Lydia said, although I have been present, I see new aspects of what we have actually created together. And there would be conclusions, and I have already shared them with the board, and I was very happy to hear that in his opening remarks, Robert already mentioned there would be 3 areas where I believe we should work in a more focused way, similar to the Future Management Consultancy Initiative. One is digitalization. The other one is about ESG, and I will be presenting the results from the ESG Global Consultancy Survey, where I will have a list of very specific proposals how we could go forward. And there is a third topic which I think we should focus on, and this is ethics, because the new market conditions, the new market driving forces change and have new dilemmas in front of us. So we should focus on ethics as well as a third stream going forward. And I'll be happy maybe to work with, or Jalal will take this initiative going forward. So there will be a follow-up, specific proposals, and something else which I have already mentioned a few times. This is to make the Future Leaders Forum a permanent structure within ICMCI. I think this was a great success. We have more than 50 active young members. This is a bridge for the future, and it would be great if ICMCI could turn that to a permanent structure and involve them in decision making. Sorry, Robert, it took me too long, maybe.
No problem.
But I'm passionate about this.
Actually, we are dealing with the internet. It works with Cosema, but the internet in the room is not working anymore. As soon as they left the room, it breaks down. So it's any further questions to Gergana with regards to the Future of Consulting Initiative or the membership committee? Okay, good. Then let us move to the next item on the agenda. I would have liked to support you, Jeremy, to present the resolutions, but unfortunately, yes, that's the outcome.
That's okay. That's all right. So, do you want me to explain?
Yes, please write about the resolution and voting process.
Okay, so hello everyone. This is a very short announcement, really. Every year at the annual meeting, we ask you to vote on resolutions. There are 4 resolutions this year. You will have seen this from the agenda and the papers that have been circulated. The process for voting is the electronic process. You've all received the link to cast your votes. And the opportunity to cast your vote is now open. It has been open since the beginning of this meeting. We, the board, ask you to support the resolutions, but it is your decision, of course, to do that. There are 4 resolutions. Firstly, to support the board report, which you have received, and I hope you have all read and you are satisfied with. Secondly, is to support the Treasurer's report. And thirdly, the budget for the coming 2 years. And finally, to support the board's strategic priorities document, which Robert will be explaining in more detail in a moment. We ask you to go online at your convenience between now and 24 hours time. So the portal is open for voting for 24 hours, and we will announce the voting results tomorrow, which I think is always going to be tomorrow in everybody's time clock, wherever you are located. So tomorrow, in about 24 hours' time, we will announce the results of the voting. We ask you to support the resolutions, but of course, it's your decision to go ahead. And it's as simple as that. There are no special resolutions this year. It's a very straightforward process. So I hope you find it easy to follow. If you have any questions about the process, if you cannot get online or your portal isn't working properly for you, please contact Rima or Kuzema in the next 24 hours, and they will assist you to get your login and vote. And that's all I have to say. From a secretary's point of view, this meeting is very straightforward, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you. So back over to Robert.
Thank you. I don't see any comments.
I hope not.
Just want to clarify, 24 hours from now, I think from
24 hours.
9 o'clock from
7 o'clock.
23 and a half hours from now, because we started half an hour.
Okay. Now, that's what I introduced as the formalities of our meeting, and they're important, no doubt about, but we would like to keep that as short and efficient as possible. I would move on to the strategic discussions we had in the last couple of months, almost a year. Also set up in an environment not meeting in person. We had a meeting at the end of the discussions in June, face to face, but to prepare everything that was in online meetings that took place before that. First of all, I want to say we do have a strategy, we do have a vision, and we very quick came to the outcome that we agreed that we don't need to change our vision, not our strategy in general, but we need to re-evaluate what our actions and the implementation of the strategies is referring to. And we had this discussion along what we call 3 pillars. In most of the organization and most of the governance in special, but also in our behavior and action was set up 35 years ago, and there have been some adaptations in the last years, but we started based on the outcome of the last year. We didn't start by zero, but these 3 pillars helped us to structure our discussion process. One is, the first one, ethics and standards. That includes, of course, competence framework. It includes the code of conduct. It includes the development of the ISO 20700 standard, and so on. And this is what we call the core of ICMCI. This is our sense, it's our visions, it's our thinking, it's in our head, it's in our stomach, it's everywhere. We have our CMC certification that shows the appropriate competences we developed, and last year we had a new version. We published a new version of the competence framework because time has changed and we added some competences, but in general it's the same competence framework we developed many years ago. Everything what we do has to pay at the end of the day. It has to pay into this pillar. Second pillar is the knowledge development and sharing, handling with trends, the development of our profession, and know-how sharing. That is something where we haven't been that active in the last years because we focused very much on the first pillar, ethics and standard. But the Future of Consulting initiative is an outcome of how can we share our knowledge, how can we develop knowledge further, how can we deal with the academic fellows, how can we integrate academic fellows in developing knowledge. We have more than 100 academic fellows this year. So it's a huge base of knowledge, and we should use this base, and I'm 100% sure the academic fellows would love to contribute, but we need to ask them, and somebody needs to control the process. And that is something which is not new for us in general, but there hasn't been a focus on in the last year, in my understanding. And the third pillar, same like the second, we always had a representation activities. We always had marketing and communication activities. And I remember very well the first time when I had discussions with ICMCI, it very soon went to the point we need to be more active in promoting what we are doing, and we need to be more active in approaching the consulting industry as a community, and to interact with possible new members. And it took us many years to start with very concrete activities. I think Soren started and Dwight also started with new activities, and Johanna actually, she's the person who is in charge of the marketing committee. She started to do it very concrete and post in Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and have the community set up. But now we need to become a little bit more professional and mature, as we are a mature organization, and enhance these activities. And I think it's quite important to integrate our members in the communication activities. And that sounds very easy. But if you think about it, it's a very complex process, because if we collaborate with members, with other entities who have their plans and their activities, and if we want to collaborate in our communication activities to be more efficient, it means that we need to set up proper planning process and agreements by the IMCs, our members, and that's something we need to start discuss about. So these are the three pillars that gave the structure for the discussions. And one questions we have been always asking, or two questions we have been always asking, is what is the impact on our members, and how can our members benefit from that? Because all we do is, as a member organization, ICMCI, all we do needs to be as a benefit for our members. They need to benefit from our communication. They need to benefit from the knowledge development and sharing. They need to benefit from ethics and standards. We try to have this discussion from the very beginning, and always keeping in mind what we're doing. At the end of the day, there must be something that has an impact on our members. We sent out the report and a very comprehensive summary of the outcomes of the discussion. I would like to recall some along the three pillars. And these they finally added in very concrete to-do lists along these three pillars. And I would like to just to name a couple out of them, not meaning that the other activities are not so important. All of them are very important, and all of them in total for an organization like ICMCI with very limited resources, we have to be realistic. We might not achieve everything that we have listed in this list in the next year. It might take a little bit longer, because we are a volunteering organization and we have limited resources, but it's still on the agenda. It needs to be on a list that it gives the direction where to move. With regards to the ethics and standard pillars, we decided to have a little to shape our value proposition. The value proposition that was set up a couple of years ago is something that needs to be reshaped frequently, like every organization does. Time changes, the pain points of our audience change and move. So that's something we don't need to do everything new. We don't need to start from the scratch, but we should shape it and make it more on time. And that gives us content for awareness campaigns. And that is the link to the marketing and communication. And another outcome of the discussion I want to mention is we should lower the barrier for entry. For entry, the organization, like as for entry the ICMCI as a member, but also to entry the certification path. The entry level for now is the ISO training, and the gold standard is CMC, but there is something in between. There should be something in between that helps for somebody who enters training and maybe certification path is not so far away like the gold standard. There should be something in between. And that's something PSC is asked to develop, to find some mid-level certifications. There is in one of our discussions in the chair report discussions from Australia, there came the input about micro-credentials, and it's still in my brain. That hit me, and I think these micro-credentials could give a direction where to move in, and that's something that seems to be quite common in universities and for education on academic level, to have very small bites and give certification on small levels. We have it in Austria. If I think about the C certifications provided by INSET, but we also have it in other members that they have something in between entry level and CMC. Not to change the quality approach of the CMC level, it's to emphasize the quality approach of the CMC level, and that's something we need to work on. And the same is the entry level for new stakeholders that could become members at a certain point. Now we only know membership, we know provisional members, but we also know, and of course, are they called regular members or just members? Full members, yes, thank you. And maybe there are other stakeholders who want to liaise with us, and maybe we can have a lower entry level to win new members at the end of the day, but maybe some of them don't want to become a full member. And that's something we also should think about in lower the level to enter our community for members, but also for certification. Along the strategic pillar, knowledge and development sharing, we already started, and today's conference is in that direction. We will discuss how can we implement as a consulting service, how can we implement sustainability? What does it mean for the consulting industry? It's a new development. Together with digitalization, it's not the question digitalization or sustainability. Usually it's the question digitalization and sustainability, and very often sustainability by technology or digitalization. I talk with many people, and you do talk with many people, but in my feeling, everybody agrees on that. But some of them ask, and how could we do that? Many of them think, and how could we do that, but are a little bit too shy to ask the question. Because in my feeling, only very few people have a very rough idea how to implement sustainability in an enterprise, in a company, in an organization. And that is something we will handle in the conference later today, and that's something we need to elaborate in the next time to provide solutions for the consulting industry. And finally, I already mentioned the representation pillar, communication. Johanna is not with us now, but I think she will join in the evening session because she is on the American continent, and the same time zone Dwight is in, and Dwight's side it's becoming 4:00 a.m. Thank you for joining us anyway. But communication is something that cannot be done. We need to do communication, digital and internet and newsletter, social media, everything is changing. It's taking actually even more resources. It's not taking less resources, it's taking more resources because you have to have proper content. You have content that is hitting pain points for our audience, and we need to improve. We want to start by setting up a yearly plan. What are the communication campaigns? And this campaign planning, we start as ICMCI now, and once we are used to work with planned campaigns, then we allocate resources in terms of money and in terms of knowledge and in terms of people who do that. Once we do that, we are able to collaborate, as I mentioned earlier, with IMCs and do these campaigns together. So if we invite to the International Consultancy Day, for example, we do that on a global level. If somebody from Canada, for example, wants to register, clicks on register, and the Canadian Institute comes in and says, you can register for free if you become a member, or if you're not a member, you need to pay 100 euros, whatever. And that is a joint campaign with members. It's a vision. I have the vision. We have the vision, but it's a long way to go. So please do not put too much pressure on us, but be ready maybe to become a pilot group and to support this strategy in communication in future. These are the three pillars, and that's the basic outcome of the strategic discussions. And this is what we want to discuss with you and want to understand how your opinion about this outcome is. Is there anything that you would like to add? Is there anything we should delete, or is there anything we should amend? The floor is open.
Thank you, Robert. I think there's a lot of initiative that ICMCI is trying to implement. I just want to touch on one point you mentioned about the CMC is so high. We need another entrance step that we can move to the CMC. In Singapore, IMC Singapore, we have already created that entrance step. In other words, we have created another level of certified, well, I wouldn't say certified, management consultant, we call them registered management consultants. So instead, in short, instead of the 3,600 hours of consulting to become a CMC, they need only 1,000 hours. So that is a platform for them to become CMC. And the 1,000 hours, where we call them registered management consultant, it's recognized by our Singapore government. And with that, they can get funding up to 80% of consulting projects that they do for small, medium enterprise. So in short, if we want to go along that route, I think it's very good. We'll be happy to share. If PSC is going to be given that task, we're happy to share how do we go about it, but not today.
Thank you very much, Lydia. You made my day because we were always looking for how can we call them. It's not certified. And I think that it's the answer to hours of discussions we already had about that. Maybe we change our minds, but now it appears for me very clear because it indicates it is more than just being a consultant. It's a registered consultant, and I really like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you. But that is sharing of knowledge and ideas and experience.
Okay. I also want to touch on very quickly. They have to go through a course to learn about consultancy. They have to sit for exam. They have to be interviewed by 2 very experienced CMC to qualify. So there are kind of hurdles for them, not that they just be trained and then get the registered management consultant title. No. All right. So from there, we can move on to the next step of becoming a CMC 3,600 consulting hours. So we start with 1,000. And fortunately, our Singapore government recognized this. And I must say, in a way, we use the gold standard of ICMCI, the CMC, but we dilute a little bit so that they can reach to be certified, to be registered, put it this way. In short.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment that we also have something that we call the registered consultant program. It's not a certification, and it's supposed to start in 2023, but it's basically a 1-year program to develop consultants into basically it's around 6 months of classes, an internship program with 30 hours of collaborating with a CMC. That's basically the design. And after that, an opportunity to do a project that is then evaluated by a panel. So after that, the person will basically, it is intended for novice professional that want to get into the profession, and aimed at providing not only the know-how academically, but actually some practice and some feedback on a first project, let's say. So I'll be happy to share that as well, if you want.
Thank you.
Rob, if I could just make one quick comment, please. Lydia and Otto, thanks very much for that. I'm liaison to the PSC from the board and also for the academic fellows, and I'm particularly involved in the development of these interim courses through the PSC. So I'd be very keen to speak to you both to get more information about what you're doing and to get the detail. So whenever that's suitable for you.
Sure, certainly. We'll be happy to share.
And this will also help us in PSC to develop our project more in depth. Thank you very much, Lydia and Otto.
Here in Mongolia, we are doing very similar what Otto says. We definitely see the demand for this. So it's great to see that everyone's sharing their experiences on this. We see it the high value to develop this kind of interim courses and involved with coaching and practice to help the individuals who strive to be consultants.
Yeah, thank you. Very valuable. Thank you.
May I add also the system from Austria, Lydia? Maybe it goes a little bit together with your ideas, if I understand you well. We had the same discussion in Austria many years ago, how to handle management consultants who don't want to have the hearing maybe from CMC, who are not really qualified for the CMC. So we started with a scheme. We said on base, there is the license in Austria. Second, we have management consultants, they don't want to have hearings. So they say, okay, I'm 20 years on the market, I'm qualified, but the hearing I don't like, you know. So then we said there is next step, accreditation. He can put on his business card accredited, not certified, accredited management consultant. And then we have next step, we have specialized. They are also not the CMC, but they are certified in different themes, such as certified digital consultant, for example, such as marketing, a certified marketing management consultant, and so on. And on the top is the CMC, which means he's the generalist about all these different steps. So this helps us in Austria to first to invite all management consultants to get more and more qualified, because they start on the base with the license. Then they have the next step. Okay, I send my papers. If my papers are quite okay, then I'm accredited by the IMC. And then if I'm an expert, I have different certifications. And on the top, I have the CMC. And this means also a lot of PR. You have to do your PR, because otherwise you have certified digital consultants and people mean, okay, this is also a CMC. What's the difference? So you have to make a lot of PR for your scheme if you see that it's a good way also for you, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank
There
you.
is a message in the chat about, or a discussion more or less. It's about e-learning platform for CMC training. Yes, good idea.
Yes.
Good idea. Good idea. I think it's a huge project if you think it to the end, because we have different training schemes. It's the certification that is standardized and where the assessment is on, but the training is different from country to country, including the language. We had this discussion already with the ISO training to have an e-learning. Maybe we should start with a smaller project, and maybe the ISO training e-learning platform would be an entry level for the e-learning platform. But yes, I think there are many synergies, and if we put together our brains from all over the world in developing the training material, it would help a lot, and it would be much more efficient than every IMC does this in their own chamber.
Yeah, I think, if I may, I think that we regard ISO training as the basic level.
Yes.
So therefore, it would be good to start with ISO training, and then that can be expanded, elements of CMC built onto it, rather than develop programs. We can add to it the CMC.
And if I may, I think we may find that there are IMCs out there in the world that have good learning platforms already, that somehow ICMCI could collaborate with, rather than have to set up something from scratch.
Yeah.
Because that would be a big investment, and maybe beyond the resources of ICMCI. But there are several large institutes out there in the world that already have these kind of facilities. And it would be great if we could find a way to collaborate in some way,
including GI. Okay, if there are no further, yes, GI has already implemented. If there are no further comments on my introduction, this is the general strategic discussion, but we have two more concrete outcomes, and these are out of the committee of the task forces. One is the governance task force led by Dwight, and the other one is the stakeholder task force led by Jeremy. And they have been dealing with the same questions, but from the perspective of their task force. And I would like to hand over to Dwight, because he prepared some slides to present. Don't worry, it's a very short and very focused presentation, but it's easier for all of us to have some pictures for that. So, Dwight, I hand over to you.
What is an annual meeting of management consultants if you can't have at least one PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to start to give a quick overview of the intent behind the task force report. In the few minutes that I have, don't worry, I'm not going to try to summarize all the pages and all the recommendations. You've seen the document. It did take on a bit of a life of its own. But we are in a situation where, as ICMCI, we are maturing as an organization. This is our 35th anniversary. In the first 25 plus years of those, we acted as a very small volunteer organization that came together once a year and did our thing, and then went back to our institutes, and sort of the global operation, the federated aspect of our organization stayed in the background or was on the side of the desk. So with the addition of a staff organization, that has changed, and we need to ensure that we are keeping up with the times and setting ourselves up for success. So thank you very much to the task force members who you see on the screen, who have done amazing work for us. So in terms of thinking about governance and management, how do we ensure that organizations in general have a governance structure in place that oversees the entire organization, and a staff structure that has the management or the operations aspect for implementing? So from the governance perspective, just as Robert led us through, we have discussions about our strategy. We talk about where we are now. We talk about where we want to get to. That's our vision for what we want to be. And we have that desired future state that we want to attain. And we realize that there's going to be effort to get there. So we put in place our transitional goals and our operational goals to figure out how we can best get there. So from the governance perspective, we have a fairly simple, straightforward picture. We as the delegates, and we elect a board to ensure that we have in place this governance, we have that vision for the organization, and we ensure that things are on track. So that's the governance of the organization. If we think, though, then about the staff organization, when it comes time to implement all of those policies that we have in place, it looks a little bit more like that. It's not a straight line. The staff has to have the authority and the ability to work its way through all the obstacles they will find, the hurdles, the changes in the environment, things that happen over time, to ensure that they are helping the organization achieve that which needs to be achieved over that point in time. So getting this separation can be very, very helpful in nonprofit organizations, because if you have the governance, it keeps the organization focused on what we want to accomplish. It helps the entire organization put in place those governance mechanisms that need to be there for us to ensure that the delegates, those who represent all of the stakeholders of the organization, put in place the policy, the strategy, the budget, the policies that need to be there for guidance to our operations. But then the staff operation, which is working at this day to day, needs to have that flexibility and the authority to do what is necessary within context, within all of the things that are set by our governance organization, to achieve that desired future state. So we started off looking at the current state of our organization, and this is as is published on the website. That should look familiar to you. This is our current structure. But if you look at how we're structured now, we have some things that start to create confusion between the governance part of our organization and the staff part of our organization. So for example, one of the standing committees, nomination and succession planning, reports directly to the Assembly of Delegates. But the board of directors also reports directly to the Assembly of Delegates. So from the perspective of the Assembly of Delegates, this annual meeting, in other words, how do we ensure that there's a single point of accountability, that we can ensure that we are delegating appropriately to parts of our organization to ensure that work is being done? You'll see on the side here, the executive director and the secretariat are kind of on the side reporting to the board of directors and kind of on the side overseeing the standing committees. So this has created a situation over the years where there's confusion at the standing committee level. Part of their job is to support governance, to make recommendations on programs, to make recommendations on strategy, to develop policies for how we will be doing our work. But part of the work of standing committees traditionally has been to implement programs and services that have been approved by the delegates. But now that we have that staff organization in place, it creates confusion at the committee level. Am I part of the governance framework helping to create strategy, or am I part of the operations framework helping to implement things? And this puts our executive director in a very difficult situation because the secretariat now has to deal with standing committees that are partly governance and partly operations, and it creates confusion really at the operational level in terms of who does what when, to whom are these standing committees accountable, and so on. So that's the heart of what we tried to do, and we have put together a series of recommendations to develop a framework that is more straightforward. It's consistent with best practices from nonprofit organizations around the world. So this model shows that our members and CMCs form the baseline from the general public, of course. The IMC members are the foundation of our membership. Those are our members at this point. We're now talking about how we can make that more accessible. Then the institutes appoint the delegates. The delegates come together once a year at the Assembly of Delegates, which is called, that's the bylaw term. We call it our Annual Meeting of Delegates. And then at that Annual Meeting of Delegates, we elect our board of directors. And the board of directors then should have place enshrined in the bylaws what standing committees would be accountable to the board of directors that would help the board to do its work, could report directly to the annual meeting, but at the end of the day, the Assembly of Delegates should hold the board of directors accountable for all of that work that takes place between meetings of the Assembly of Delegates. Once that is in place, then we can have and look at what is the staff organization. How do we as ICMCI implement the programs and standards that have been approved by the Assembly of Delegates and put in place by the board of directors? We have to have an executive director who's held accountable by the board. As you know, I'm big on single points of accountability, is held accountable by the board to implement strategy and to carry out support to all of our ongoing programs and support of our institutes. In order to do that, the executive director has the authority to have paid staff, which are within the existing budget. We're not asking for a ton more money. We're just trying to clarify what the authority is of the executive director, and has the authority to recruit volunteers to support the work of the secretariat. So volunteers in our organization might be on standing committees where they are part of the governance, or they might be helping to implement programs where they're part of the staff operation and doing that. And the executive director and the secretariat should also have the authority to create working groups, which are not part of the governance structure, but where expertise can come together so that people can collaborate to help with the implementation of programs. So the strength here is that we then see that from your perspective as delegates, you hold the board of directors accountable for the governance, the oversight and of the organization moving towards attaining our strategy. And the board of directors holds the executive director accountable for the operations of our organization. So that's a major report. So we're not asking you to say approve all of the 59 recommendations that are in that report. What we are doing now is tabling this as the start of the process. So the work of the task force is complete. It's been approved by the board in this submission to you, the 2022 Assembly of Delegates, as part of the strategic initiatives of ICMCI. Following this meeting, the board will begin to work as outlined in the report. This is the intent of our operating procedures moving forward. We'll start the consultation program seriously in 2023 with hub meeting consultations and any other consultations we need. So as we start addressing some of the key issues as the board, we will organize stakeholder meetings and discussions to make sure that whatever we're doing now will reflect what it is we want to be as ICMCI as we move forward. The board will implement changes that are consistent with the report. For example, terms of reference need to be updated. We all know that that needs to happen so the board can begin that work. There's no need to wait for a whole year before we start implementing some of the thoughts towards moving to better understanding of the different accountabilities and authorities between our governance and our management operations. And coming back to the next annual meeting, the board will report on the status of any implementations and also to bring recommended changes that come under the authority of the delegates at the annual meeting, including some bylaw changes which are out of date with respect to how we should be doing our work going forward. So I think I made it within my 8 minutes there, Jeremy. I didn't look at the start time, but those are the comments that I had to give everyone a sense of what we're doing with the governance of ICMCI.
Thank you, Dwight.
That's good. Thank you.
Let me hand over to Jeremy.
So thank you for that. Yeah, the reason, what I want to do is briefly give a summary of the stakeholder group and its work that we've carried out this year. Fortunately, we came up with 3 recommendations, not 59 or whatever. So I think I can summarize these very quickly. Our context was last year, of course, you will remember that we asked you to endorse some activity that we're going to carry out this year to investigate the best way for ICMCI to engage with a broader range of stakeholders. The context of this being that although ICMCI seeks to represent the global management consulting profession, we know very well that our members, who are all here today, don't always have that high representation within their own countries. And of course, our member countries, we have 50 or so members, that's great, but that's nowhere near the 200 or so that are in the United Nations, the building that we're in today. So one of the things we wanted to put in place was some recommendations to enable us to broaden our appeal and to broaden our ability to connect with more organizations that represent the profession of management consultancy. And therefore, we came up with 3 important recommendations. The first one, which has already been discussed at the board and that we want to act upon, is creating a status of observer, not a new membership status. So observer organizations such as multinational global funding bodies, for instance, can connect directly with ICMCI and can observe our activities and participate in our activities. And the board is next year going to set this status up and come up with an appropriate fee level and representation arrangement. The second one, which is more delicate, and we understand this, is that we're going to go out to consultation to our members, so to all of you here and those who can't make it today, to understand how best to frame the bylaws to allow ICMCI to connect with other organizations that may be in your countries that represent management consultancy in some way, either other professional bodies or trade associations, such that exist in certain European countries to start with, to how best enable them to connect with us, to give us a greater representation, if you like, in the profession of management consultancy. Our third recommendation is, of course, to consider how we can staff our organization, both with employed people and also with volunteers, to deal with connecting with these bodies. And each time we need to do that, of course, will require a business case to justify the cost. And we're going to investigate that during the coming year. So those are the 3 recommendations which appear in the board report. And you'll have had a chance to look at those. And I'm happy to take any thoughts or questions that you might have on those 3 items right now. Otherwise, we can move on to the next discussion point. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or questions on that they'd like to raise. Nothing for now. That's great. So we'll press on with that during the coming year. Thank you for that. It may not be me that is involved because, as you probably know, my tenure on the board now finishes this year. But I'm sure somebody else as a board member will pick this up to take and lead the initiative forward. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Dwight. No, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Dwight. Now, this is the sum up of the strategic discussion. As I introduced, and then we had the two committees who, task forces, sorry, who presented their input to from the outcome. And I want to ask you if there are any questions, because this is resolution number 4. If you agree with the resolution number 4 to support the strategic priorities, it's my introduction, it's the both task forces reports that are agreed in one resolution. Please don't forget to vote. There's still a little bit time. It's 22 hours and 40 minutes. If not, it might be because the next item on the agenda is a very prominent item.
Mhm.
And maybe you're waiting for the report of the chair of the NSPC to announce the voting results and approval of new board directors. Shall we make a break before that, or is it
Drums rolling.
or rolling drums or whatever? Right, I hand over.
Thank you, Robert. So I'm very pleased on behalf of NSPC to present this report. I'd like to thank the members of NSPC at 2 of the 3 that join me are there. So Alfred Harl from Austria, Lydia Go from Singapore. The third is Randy Baldwin from Canada. He's not on this call, and this is he's had his last meeting with NSPC. He's retiring from our committee, so we will be looking for a 4th from the Americas. Also to thank Robert as the chair sits in on all of those meetings, and Rima as the executive director, non-voting, sits in on those meetings as well. And then finally, Josema, who provides all of the support and keeps things running in the background. So we did go through our election process this year. We have 40 delegates cast their ballots representing the institutes and making voting on the candidates. We had 5 vacancies this year, and there were 9 candidates. I would like to thank all of the candidates. So all 9 who put their names forward, I think is amazing. It shows the strength of ICMCI and of our delegates who want to support in the governance process that we have. For the first time ever, this is a little different, so I do have to delay the announcement for a second. We did have a tie between 2 of the candidates. We discussed with NSPC many different options and consulted with the secretary of the board, Jeremy, and we decided that best practices for governance organizations in democratic voting is to have a random lottery to determine which of the 2 that were tied would be the successful candidate. We had a triple blind process. Jeremy joined NSPC with part of the process, which was completely unknown to those on NSPC. I had a part of it, which was unknown to everybody else, and then there was a third part. But at the end of the day, we matched the process to one of the candidates. As we traditionally do at ICMCI, we don't name the order of the candidates. So I will be very pleased to announce the 5 successful candidates in alphabetical order. But before I do that, I want to thank Jeremy, who's retiring as Secretary of the Board and has finished his terms at the board of ICMCI. Thank you for your work and thank you for helping us in this unusual situation at NSPC. And Zhang Yanyan from China, I'd like to thank her. She is now finishing her term on the board as well. So the first successful candidate in alphabetical order, Alan Blackman. Alan is on the call. Congratulations. And this will be the beginning of your first term. Alan was kind enough to step in to fill a vacancy on the board, as the board has the authority to fill vacancies between meetings. But this is the beginning of your first official term. Secondly, I would like to announce the successful candidate Rogero Hössler from Switzerland. Rogero will be beginning his first term. Third successful candidate is Johanna Luka from Kosovo. Johanna is beginning her second term. The fourth successful candidate is Gergana Mantorkova. She is starting her second term. And then finally, a new to the board, Norma Shori from Caribbean Institute was the successful candidate and will be beginning her first term. So please join me in congratulating the new directors of the board. So that concludes my report. And again, thanks to all of the candidates and thanks to all of the delegates who voted in this process.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the report. We are exactly in our scheduled time. So I have 6 minutes from now on to say thank you. To say, first of all, to you try to handle this process, but also you mentioned already Jeremy, who is in the room. He's leaving the board. He is from now on an elder statesman. and many thanks to you. Many thanks to all the committees and all the volunteers in the committees. We already discussed that at the beginning of the meeting, how important the work of the committees is. And thank you to the Secretariat, to Emma and Rina. Perfect. And I want to say welcome to the new board members by saying thank you to Gergana for the last 3 years and looking forward to the next 3 years. And Johanna is not here and Alan is here. Yes. Okay. Thank you for the last year and thank you for the next 3 years. Rogero, yes. Welcome. Welcome, Rogero. You're not completely new, but yeah, it's okay. You will deal with us.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining. I hope to see you very soon in a couple of hours in our conference. For those who will not attend, I will go personally and wake them up or whatever, because this is going to be a very good conference and the program is excellent. I think, as you might possibly say for every conference, but especially for this conference, this will be the best. So don't lose it and don't forget it. Hope to see you soon. If there is anything to comment from your side, you have 1 minute left.
Lydia.
Hi, thank you to everyone for all your hard work.
Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you for joining. Have a great day. Have a wonderful night, whatever you're doing in the next hours, and hope to see you soon.
See you at the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.